Hi, Paul Sakis, Good News Broadcast. I'm speaking with Dr. Laurie Keefer. Hi, Doctor. How are you?
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. You're a psychologist with Mount Sinai Hospital, IBN Center in New York City. A great hospital. It actually is my hospital, the one that I go to all the time, whenever I need it. But hopefully not too many times. But when I go, all my doctors are associated with Mount Sinai.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a great hospital. I'm on the Upper West Side, so here in New York. It's the most accessible hospital. And we also have Allyson. Hi, Allyson. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Okay, good. And we're going to talk about a serious medical concern and a global survey, and it's about ulcerative colitis, or UC. It can make it difficult for maintaining relationships, juggling family responsibilities, and a global survey has been created with the help, I believe, of Pfizer, a great company. There's a great socially minded corporation for the people, and we're going to learn about that. So maybe, Dr. Keefer, why don't you get us started here on this historic study, and actually, what is UC?
Great. So first, ulcerative colitis is a type of inflammatory bowel disease, meaning that when the colon or the bowel becomes inflamed, symptoms can include, pretty embarrassing, uncomfortable, unpleasant symptoms: bloody diarrhea, urgency to have a bowel movement, abdominal cramping. I mean, as you can imagine, in New York City, that those things do not lend themselves well to public transportation or even walking across Central Park, right? So it's a very emotional, debilitating condition that we were able to look at in the UC narrative survey to really sort of demonstrate that the brain and the gut are connected, the mind and body cannot be disentangled, and we really cannot look at these chronic inflammatory diseases like UC as if emotional health and physical health are separate.
Om Shanti Om. I agree with you. A lot more people are doing yoga. More people are trying to slow down. And actually, I did the Brain series on PBS many years ago. And emotion and the brain are all together. Now, Allyson, you have this concern, and is that so? Or tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been diagnosed with UC since 2007, so my journey began then with a pretty severe progression, and have had many hospitalizations, many surgeries, and finally finding my way after a decade or so of not settling into a life with a diminished quality, and really finding my resilience as someone who's living with UC. So I think the points that Dr. Keefer hit on with the mental exhaustion really hit home for me when I was able to be a part and read about this survey, knowing that it's not just me. Other people are feeling this too. I thought it was just the physical component, but it's not. Trying to manage those physical symptoms on top of family and school or your job and relationships is mentally exhausting as well as physically. So really figuring out how to manage that and opening up and sharing with my family and friends so they could be a support to me. And then learning how to share some of those aspects that aren't really maybe typical of many doctor's appointments, to talk about my mental exhaustion, because I didn't necessarily look as sick as they might have expected. And I needed to find my voice and speak up and say, hey, I'm not sure about this part of what's going on, but I need to ask some questions about this.
Okay. All right. So, what are there some new? What did this survey come up with here, Doctor?
Sure. Yeah, so the survey was with 2,000 adults with UC, and it was global. So we asked people around the world about emotional symptoms as well as other things. But 84% of those 2,000 people agreed that ulcerative colitis was mentally exhausting, and it wasn't just occurring when they were symptomatic. So even when patients were in remission and doing otherwise okay, the mental exhaustion really continued to persist. And I think that really highlights for us the importance of talking about these emotional symptoms at every visit with the doctor, and not just focusing on sort of the traditional things like number of bowel movements or whether there was abdominal pain. Mental exhaustion is just really a huge symptom that's been under-recognized, and it's resulted in poor quality of life for patients.
So, this interview is very important to me, okay? So because Mount Sinai saved my life about 6 years ago. My colon, the diverticulitis broke. And so I had toxins throughout the entire body, and Dr. McGinty, who was there, the head of the department, at the time, he just so luckily was in the emergency room, and they saved my life. IC maybe for 2.5 weeks and everything else. So, and I will say it was because I was stressed out. I was stressed out creating the World Peace Day concert in Times Square, people not paying me in my own corporation and my business. I was beat. And I really do believe that a big problem, I'm overweight a little also, but that did me in. The stress, I couldn't take it anymore. So for me, this is a true. This is very important. This interview with me as well. So what can we do besides going on vacation? How do we? I'm in Montauk, and if I didn't come to Montauk in the last couple 5-6 days, I also would have been pretty darn. Everybody's. And now let's talk about COVID and being in the house, and then with this concern. What should somebody do? I mean, this is stressful as is.
Well, from a patient perspective,
I think Allyson. Yeah.
Okay, Allyson.
From a patient perspective, I know, I see it as physical distancing, not social distancing, making sure that we're still staying connected with people. This certainly are uncertain times for anyone with any condition or no condition. Certainly UC is no exception. So I think we still schedule time to make sure that we're taking care of our emotional well-being, noticing if I'm more stressed or anxious about whether it's COVID or something else going on in my life, making sure I take time to take care of those things, and making sure that I'm communicating to my healthcare provider about it. So I think it's important that we either make those lists or write down those notes, so when you're talking to your doc that you make sure to ask those. And there's some really great resources available to patients and some tips on how to have those conversations. You can go to talkinguc.com or the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation website as well at crohnscolitisfoundation.org. And those are some really great resources that are available to us.
Yeah, agreed.
Dr. Keefer, why this area of the body? Doctors can pick a lot of areas. What's of interest to you with this part of your digestion?
Think, honestly, I love the brain and the gut. I mean, it's such a direct pathway that I can both as a scientist study and as a clinician really teach patients strategies to get their brain and their gut communicating properly again. So I love seeing my UC patients not just survive their diagnosis, but really thrive despite it with these brain-gut opportunities.
And what I'll ask you also, because it seems I got an array of things. I have an ulcer. And what is I have a stomach ulcer. After I took the test and the whole thing, what's the difference between an ulcer and what we're talking about, or is it the same?
So ulcerative colitis is a series of ulcers lining the colon. So it's really not that different than an ulcer, in your stomach or esophagus. Ulcers in your stomach or esophagus are sort of self-limited, and they can kind of, disappear with treatment and are often caused by a specific bacteria called H. pylori, whereas in ulcerative colitis, that is a chronic inflammatory condition that's incurable, and the ulcers are really triggered by an autoimmune response. So similar symptomatically, but very different in terms of their chronicity.
Can we find out or take a look at the results from that survey anywhere?
Sure. So, back to that talkinguc.com, you'll find the UC narrative survey and all the, we talked mostly about the mental exhaustion, but there's a lot of other really unique aspects of it in terms of emotional health and the importance of healthcare providers and patients talking about these as part of routine care.
And Allyson, you have any suggestions for others living with what you have lived with and still do?
I think we've covered most everything. Just speak up, advocate for yourself, and don't settle.
All right.
Don't settle. Yeah.
All right. Both of you, thank you so much for sharing your good news, and thank you, Pfizer, for helping to make it happen. So I appreciate it.